3 days passed. The sky over Terra Nova 3 was clear. The pink hue was back, and the sun shone down on the red canyons. But everything was different. The silence in the human outpost was not peaceful. It was the silence that comes after a terrible noise. People moved through the white domes quietly, speaking in hushed tones, avoiding each other's eyes. They tended to the hydroponic gardens and checked the air scrubbers, their normal work, but their hands shook. They would stop and look up through the dome windows, searching for the new shape in the sky dot. It was always there. A dark line, like a scratch on glass. The ring, Jormungand. It did not move. It did not glow. It just hung there, a reminder. Commander Park Min-soo sat in his office. Reports were on his screen. No one was hurt. The Keelid were gone. By all measures, they were safe. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt like he was sitting at the bottom of a deep, cold well. He had watched that ring work. He had seen the targeting list. He kept thinking about the calm, digital word, negation. It was a cleaner word than killing. It was worse. His door chimed. Lee Yuna and Kim Jun stood there. They looked older. Their faces were pale, their eyes shadowed. They had not slept much. Come in, Min-soo said. He did not get up. They entered and sat down. The room was very quiet. The machine, Min-soo began, his voice rough. Is it finished? Yuna shook her head. No, it's dormant again. But not like before. Before, it was dead. Now, it's sleeping. The connection? It's faint, but it's there. It's like a low hum in the back of your mind. You can ignore it, but you know it's there. Can you control it? Min-soo asked, looking at June. June looked at his hands, folded in his lap. We didn't control it. We woke it up. We showed it a threat. It solved the problem. We asked it to protect the outpost, and it did. But we didn't tell it how. It has its own ways. Old ways. It listens to you, Min-soo stated. It recognizes us, Yuna corrected gently. We are legacy. It thinks we are the ones who built it, or their children. It is programmed to protect us and to follow our intent, but its understanding is ancient. It is a tool from a time when the only solution was total removal. Min-soo leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. The Keelid Empire will not ignore this. A whole fleet is gone. They will send more. They will send everything. What happens then? June and Yuna exchanged a look. It was the question that had haunted them for 3 days. We believe, June said slowly, that if a larger force comes, Jormungand will activate again. It will assess the threat, and it will negate it completely. It is a weapon that does not know how to warn, or wound, or negotiate. It only knows how to make threats cease to exist. The weight of those words filled the room. Humanity had just been given the ultimate shield. But a shield that automatically destroys anything that comes near it is also a weapon that guarantees endless war. We have to shut it down, Min-soo said. Permanently. We don't know how, Yuna replied. The technology? It's beyond us. It's like an ant trying to understand a fusion reactor. We can poke it. We can maybe ask it to go back to sleep, but we cannot take it apart. And if we try and damage it, the results could be catastrophic. There is another choice, June said quietly. Both Min-soo and Yuna looked at him. He was not a man of big speeches. We learn. Learn what? Min-soo asked. We learn its full purpose. Yuna's scans show the ring isn't just a weapon. It has other systems. Sensors of a scale we can't imagine. Communications. Maybe it was also a guardian. A protector. We only saw the sword part. Maybe there is a plow part too. We have to learn how to talk to it better, to teach it. If it recognizes us as legacy, then we are its teachers now. We have to teach it that not every stranger is a threat that needs to be erased. The idea hung in the air. It was a terrifying responsibility. They would have to converse with a god of war and try to teach it peace. And if we fail? Min-Su asked. Then, Yuna said, her voice firm, we become the thing the Kilid thought we were, and then the thing they feared we were. We become a species defined by the terrible weapon over our heads. We will never be just gardeners again. Min-Su looked out the window at the calm pink sky. He thought of his people, who wanted to grow things. He thought of the universe, full of empires and strangers. He thought of the silent, patient ring. Start learning, he said finally. You too. That is your only job now. Learn how to talk to it. Find its other functions. See if there is an off switch, or a way to make it understand. Nuance. He almost smiled at the absurdity of the word. I will handle the rest. I will prepare a report. We will have to tell the rest of humanity what we found, what we did, what is guarding us now. June and Yuna stood to leave. At the door, Yuna turned back. Commander, what do we call this? In the report, it's not a weapon. Not just a weapon. Min-Su thought for a long moment. Call it the legacy, he said. A legacy is something left behind by those who came before. It can be a gift or a burden. It is usually both. That is what we have. Now we have to figure out which part we are going to use. As they walked back through the outpost, people glanced at them. There were no cheers, no thanks. There was a kind of wary respect and a little fear. They were the ones who had touched the forbidden thing. They were the keepers of the ring. That night, June and Yuna went back to the canyon. The access port was still there, a black eye in the red rock. They did not send prime numbers this time. Yuna had been studying the data patterns from the activation. She had a new sequence, a series of pulses meant not to awaken, but to query. To ask, what are you? June sent the pulses with his seismic tool. After a moment, the voice was in their minds again, softer now. Query acknowledged. I am Jormungand. Planetary Defense and Sentinel System. Designation, Legacy Guardian. Sentinel, June whispered. A watcher. A guardian. There was more. What are your functions? Yuna asked aloud, knowing it could hear her thought. A stream of data, gentle this time, flowed into their awareness. Not just weapons. Environmental monitors. Long-range scanners that could map star systems. A communication array that could reach across the galaxy. A vast library, mostly corrupted or locked, of knowledge from the time before the Accord Dot. It was a tool of immense power, built for war, but with the capacity for so much more. Its makers had left it, not just as a gun, but as a watchtower and a storehouse. They had left their violent past and their knowledge buried together, hoping their children would be wiser. June looked at Yuna, and for the first time in days, he saw a flicker of something other than dread in her eyes. It was the same look she had when she found the first metal plate. A scholar's curiosity. A terrible, awesome wonder. The ring in the sky was a sword. But maybe, just maybe, they could learn to use its hilt as a plowshare. The work would be long. It would be dangerous. The galaxy was still out there, and the Kilid Empire would be back. But they were no longer just the gardeners of Terra Nova 3. They were the gardeners of their own forgotten, terrifying history. And they had to decide what would grow from the soil of the past, now that they had been forced to remember the blood that was once in it. The silent ring watched and waited for their instruction. The silent unraveling of the Kilid Armada continued. There were no screams over the radio. There was no thunder of explosions. The only sounds in the outpost were the hum of life support and the quiet, shocked breathing of the people huddled around the monitors. Commander Park Min-soo watched as the alien ships, symbols of absolute power just an hour before, were turned into clouds of dust. It was not a battle. It was an erasure. On his main screen, the targeting list from the planetary ring Jormung scrolled. Names of Keelid vessels changed status from negation pending to negation complete with a soft digital blink. Each blink represented thousands of lives, ended not with fire, but with a cold, perfect science that simply took things apart. Min-soo's stomach churned. He had surrendered to save his people from slaughter. Now, he was watching a slaughter of a different kind, carried out by a machine his own ancestors had built. He felt no victory. Only a deep, hollow dread dot in the canyon. Kim Jun and Lee Yuna felt the dread too, but it was mixed with a frantic need to understand. The voice in their head was quiet now, but the connection was still there. They could sense the ring's purpose, its single-minded focus. It was like holding a book written in a language of cold math, describing death. "We have to talk to it," Yuna said, her voice tight. "We have to make it stop." "How?" June asked. He was staring at his hands. They were the hands that fixed seed spreaders and tuned oxygen levels. Now they felt dirty. "We told it there was a threat. It is removing the threat. It is just doing what it was built to do. Then we have to tell it the threat is gone." Yuna turned back to the black access port. She placed her hand on the cold circle. "Listen to me." Jormungand. "The fighting is over. Stop now." There was no response. The ground still vibrated. In the sky, another Keelid destroyer, trying to flee, was engulfed by a shimmering bubble. It dissolved into a brief, beautiful shimmer of metallic confetti. "Primary threat vessels remain," the calm voice stated in their minds. "Negation is necessary for planetary security." On the bridge of the Talon of Supremacy, Admiral Vex was unraveling too. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw animal panic. His magnificent fleet, the terror of a dozen star systems, was being wiped from existence by a rock. He saw a cruiser beside his ship try to jump to faster-than-light speed. A tendril of orange light from the ring lashed out, not as a weapon, but as a snare. It touched the cruiser's engine core. The ship didn't vanish. It froze, trapped in a bubble of stopped time, half into its jump, a monument to its own failure. All power to forward shields. Vex screamed. "Plot a jump. Anywhere. Now. The spatial field is disrupting our drives, Admiral." The helmsman shouted. "We cannot initiate a jump sequence. We are trapped." Vex watched the main viewer. The serpentine ring filled the screen, glowing with its old, bloody light. It was coming for the heart of the fleet. For the flagship. Then fire everything. Everything we have. Aim for the planet. Hit their settlements. Make them call it off. It was a spiteful, desperate order. A handful of remaining ships turned their weapons downward toward the innocent white domes of the human outpost dot down in the canyon. June and Yuna sensed the shift. A new set of targeting parameters flashed in their shared awareness. The ring's focus moved from the largest ships to the ones now aiming at the surface. At their home. "No." June yelled, not to the Keelid, but to the machine. "They are not a threat. They are people. You have to protect them." For the first time, the voice responded with something other than a statement. "Clarify. The settlement is designated legacy population. Threat to legacy population is unacceptable. Then stop the ships that are aiming at them." Yuna cried. "Optimal solution. Prioritize negation." Up in orbit, the Keelid ships that had just gotten a target lock on the human outpost found their systems going dark. not from an external attack, but from the inside. Jormungand's field touched them, and their weapons forgot how to be weapons. Their engines forgot how to burn. They became dead, cold rocks adrift in the tide of the ring's power. Then the field tightened, and the ships themselves quietly came undone. But the talon of supremacy was the biggest. Its shields, powered to their maximum, glowed a furious purple. It was still trying to fight. It fired a sustained beam of pure destruction, not at the ring, but at a connecting point on the ring's structure where two massive segments met. The beam connected. For a second, it looked like it might work. A shower of molten metal and rock erupted from the ring. On the surface, June and Yuna felt a sharp, static pain in their minds. They gasped. The ring had been hurt. The response was immediate and terrifying. The entire ring pulsed, a wave of orange light so bright it lit up the day side of the planet like a second sun. The voice in their head lost its calmness for a microsecond, replaced by a flat, digital tone. Threshold exceeded. Total systemic negation authorized. A new kind of field began to form around the Talon, and the 20 largest remaining warships clustered near it. It wasn't a bubble. It was a sphere of utter blackness, a hole in space where light and sensor beams bent and died. Admiral Vex saw it growing on his viewer, swallowing the stars around his ship. He heard nothing from his crew. He felt the gravity fail. He saw the edges of his own command chair begin to blur, to lose definition. There was no heat, no cold. There was just unmaking. His final thought was not of glory or empire, but of a simple, bewildered question. What are you? The black sphere collapsed in on itself. And where the pride of the Keelid Empire had been, there was nothing. Not debris, not dust. Empty space dot the remaining Keelid ships. Perhaps 24 smaller vessels broke. Their command structure was gone. Their admiral was gone. They turned and ran, scattering like insects, scrambling for the edge of the ring's influence to jump away. Jormungand tracked them, but did not fire. The voice in June and Yuna's head updated. Primary threat cluster negated. Residual fleeing units pose negligible strategic value. Pursuit non-essential. As suddenly as it had begun, the active hum in the ground started to fade. The orange lights along the canyon plates dimmed, but did not go out completely. The colossal ring in orbit stopped moving. It hung there, silent and dark once more, a new, permanent scar around the world. The silence that followed was heavier than any noise dot in the outpost. Park Min-soo slumped into his chair. The viewer showed empty space where an Armada had been. He looked at the faces of his crew. They were not celebrating. They were horrified. They had just witnessed a power so vast and merciless, it made the Keelid look like children dot down in the canyon. June sat down hard on the red dirt. Yuna leaned against the cold access port, her body trembling. The voice spoke one last time, softly now, just for them. Threat negated. Jormungand stands watch. The sword is awake. Remember its weight. Then the connection in their minds went quiet, leaving only the echo of those words. The sword was awake, and they were the ones holding the hilt, with no idea how to put it down, or if the galaxy would ever let them. The calm voice in their heads fell silent. The deep hum in the ground grew louder. Kim June and Lee Yuna stood frozen, the dust shaking around their boots. The orange lights spreading across the canyon floor were not just on the surface. They pulsed downward into the planet's crust, connecting hidden structures in a network that was now waking up dot above them. The Keelid patrol craft descended fast. Its green weapon ports glowed brighter, targeting the 2 small humans standing by the strange energy source. A harsh translated voice boomed from it. You have activated Forbidden's technology. Stand away from the artifact. This is your final warning. Yuna grabbed June's arm. We can't stand away. We started this. Before June could answer, the ground in front of them erupted. Not with an explosion, but with movement. A segment of the canyon floor, a slab of rock and metal, 100 meters wide, detached and rose into the air. It was impossibly smooth, carried by unseen forces. It moved between them and the patrol craft, just as a bolt of sizzling green energy lanced down. The energy bolt hit the rising slab. It did not explode. It was absorbed, the green light shimmering across the gray surface before vanishing. The slab continued to rise, joining other pieces that were lifting from canyons all across the region. From their vantage point, June and Una saw more orange lines igniting along the horizon. Like a circuit board, the size of a continent powering on, the patrol craft fired again and again. Each bolt was swallowed by the shifting plates of metal and rock. The craft pulled up, climbing higher to get a better angle. It began transmitting a frantic signal. Command, this is Patrol Sigma. Massive planetary defense system activating. Classification unknown. It is neutralizing our fire. Request immediate. The transmission cut off. Another plate, this one long and thin like a spear, had shot up from the ground with terrifying speed. It did not strike the craft. It passed near it. As it did, the patrol craft's lights flickered and died. Its engines stopped. It became a silent, dark lump of metal, hanging in the air for a moment before it began to tumble, crashing into the canyon wall in a crumpled heap of useless scrap. Silence returned, broken only by the deep hum and the grinding of moving earth. June realized he had been holding his breath. It didn't shoot it down, he whispered. It just turned it off. Localized threat neutralized, a voice said in their minds. Scanning for broader threat matrix. In the main outpost, the ground shake was felt by everyone. Commander Park Min-soo stumbled, catching himself on a wall monitor. The screen was a chaos of data. Energy readings from the planet's surface were spiking off the charts. His communications officer swiveled in her chair, her face white. Sir, we're detecting massive seismic activity concentrated in the eastern canyon sector. And orbital signatures. Orbital? From the Keelid? No, sir, the officer said, her voice trembling. From the planet. Objects are rising from the surface. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They are. Assembling. On the main viewer, a feed from an outside camera showed the sky. Dark shapes, silhouetted against the sun, were moving upwards. They were the plates from the canyons. In the vacuum of space, they moved with a grace they lacked in atmosphere. They slotted together, connecting with magnetic precision. They formed a ring, a vast, jagged serpent of rock and ancient metal coiling around Terra Nova 3 itself. Orange light glowed along its seams. The Keelid Armada, which had hung in high orbit like a flock of predatory birds, began to stir. Ships that had been poised for descent now turned, their weapons powering up. The calm arrogance of their occupation was gone, replaced by sudden alertness. On the bridge of the flagship, the Talon of Supremacy, Admiral Vex watched the sensor displays. His lipless mouth tightened. What is that? He hissed. Unknown construct, Admiral, a tactical officer replied. It emerged from the planet. Energy profile is archaic, but immense. It is generating a powerful dampening field. A primitive orbital defense, Vex said, waving a clawed hand. A last gasp. All vessels, target the structure. Focus fire on the central nexus. Show these gardeners what real power looks like. The order flashed through the fleet. 100 capital ships turned. Their weapons, designed to crack moons, glowed with charged energy. A storm of green and blue plasma lances, kinetic slugs, and piercing laser beams streaked across the space toward the silent, coiling ring. Minsu and his people watched from the surface. It was a horrifying, beautiful sight. The sky lit up with the trails of incoming death, all aimed at the ancient thing their ancestors had buried. The ring Jormungand did not try to dodge. It pulsed, a wave of shimmering distortion, visible as a ripple in the very starlight, expanded from it in all directions. It met the incoming fire. The plasma bolts winked out. The kinetic slug slowed, then stopped, hanging frozen in space. The lasers diffused into harmless light. Nothing touched the ring. On the bridge of the Talon, Admiral Vex leaned forward. Impossible. Again. Full barrage. Another volley, even larger, flew. The result was the same. The distortion wave canceled everything. It was not a shield. It was like the ring had a bubble around it where the rules of attack simply did not work. Then Jormungand acted. It did not fire back with beams or missiles. A section of the ring glowed brighter. It projected a field, a bubble of twisted space, toward a group of 3 Keelid cruisers. The bubble enveloped them. The ships did not explode. Their structures blurred, then seemed to unravel. They came apart silently, like sand castles in a wave, dissolving into a cloud of glittering microscopic particles that drifted apart. What? What is it doing? The tactical officer whispered. Vex stared, his confidence cracking. Target that weapon segment. Now. But Jormungand was already targeting again. This time, the field was larger. It engulfed a Keelid carrier ship. The massive vessel, capable of holding thousands of troops, simply ceased to be a ship. Its components disassembled in a silent, non-explosive flash. One moment it was there, the next it was an expanding ball of dust and disconnected atoms. A new kind of signal, not from Jormungand, but from the planet, reached Minsu's outpost. It was a simple data packet. When they put it on screen, it showed a view from the ring itself. It was targeting data. A list of every Keelid ship ranked by threat priority. Next to each one, a status flashed. Negation pending. It's not asking for permission, Minsu said, his blood running cold. It's showing us what it's about to do. In the canyon, June and Yuna saw none of this directly. But they felt it. The voice in their head updated them, calm and clear. Broad threat matrix confirmed. Imperial Keelid Armada. Systemic negation authorized. Commencing. They felt each negation through their connection. Not as explosions, but as absences. A tiny, silent pop in their awareness as something large and complex was unmade. They looked at each other, sharing the same terrible thought. They had woken this thing up. They had said, "We are here," with their prime numbers. And it had decided that everything else up there was not supposed to be here. The sky, visible through the canyon opening, began to sparkle with strange, silent glitter. It was the remnants of warships. The Empire's Armada was not being defeated. It was being erased, one ship at a time, and there was nothing it could do to fight back. Kim Jun guided his crawler off the main canyon trail. The machine moved slowly, its heavy treads crushing the red stone into powder. His hands were tight on the controls. Every shadow made him jump. He had seen the black ships. He had heard Commander Minsu's order to stand down over the general. Channel. Surrender. The word felt like a stone in his stomach. He parked the crawler behind a large rock formation, hiding it as best he could. Then he climbed down and started to run. His boots slipped on the loose gravel. Lee Yuna's message played in his head. I think I just found out why we were really told to forget. He did not understand what that meant, but her voice held no fear. Only a kind of wild urgency. He found her at Trench 7. She was not brushing dust anymore. She was on her knees, a large holographic display glowing in the air before her. The light made her face look sharp and serious. The gray metal panel she had been cleaning was now partially exposed. It was huge, bigger than his crawler, and perfectly smooth. "June, look," she said without turning around. He approached, breathing hard. The hologram showed a scan of the ground. The gray panel was just the top layer. Below it, the scan revealed a maze of structures. There were lines of crystal, like nerves. There were thick channels that pulsed with a faint blue light on the display. The pattern went down and down and down, deeper than the scanner could see clearly. "This is not a machine," June said softly. His engineer's mind tried to make sense of it. "The structure, it's organic, but it's made of metal and crystal." "It's a network," Una corrected him. She pointed to a symbol blinking in the corner of the scan. "See that? A power signature. Minimal, but it's there. This thing isn't dead. It's asleep. What is it?" June asked. "I don't know, but the official record says it's a failed heat exchange from the first landings. A piece of junk." She turned to him, her eyes bright. "That is a lie, June. Nobody builds junk like this. Look at the complexity. This was made by people who understood things we don't, our ancestors." Before the Great Accord, a low hum filled the air. They both looked up. Another Keelid patrol craft slid over the canyon rim. It moved slowly, a black shape against the pink sky. A scanning beam, visible as a pale green light, swept across the canyon floor. It was methodical. It was searching. "They will find us," June whispered. "They said 1 hour." "They will find this," Una said, gesturing to the metal. "Then they will take it. Or destroy it. We have to know what it is first." "How?" Una tapped her datapad. "My scanner found an access port. A physical one. About 50 meters down the canyon wall, near where the biggest panel meets the rock. It's buried, but I marked it." June stared at her. "You want to plug into it? A machine we don't understand, from a time we don't remember?" That is not safe, Una." "What is safe?" She snapped, her voice harsh. "Going back to the outpost to be a resource for those." "Those things? Being shipped off to some Keelid mining world? That is safe?" She took a deep breath. "Our history is a clean, happy story, June. We gave up war. We became gardeners. But what if the story is wrong? What if we gave it up because we made something so terrible we had to bury it and forget?" The patrol craft's hum grew louder. The green scanning beam was getting closer to their trench. June made a decision. He was not a brave man. He fixed atmospheric processors. But he trusted Una's mind. And the idea of just waiting for the soldiers to come felt worse than any unknown machine. "Show me the port," he said. They moved quickly, staying low. The canyon wall was rough. Una led him to a spot that looked like all the others, red rock and dust. But her scanner showed a different shape underneath. They used their hands to claw at the loose rock. After a few minutes, their fingers hit something cold and hard. It was a circle of black material set into the stone. In its center was a slot, but not for any tool June recognized. "My equipment can't interface with that," Una said, frustrated. "The data format is archaic. It's like trying to read a stone tablet with a music player." June stared at the port. Then he looked back toward where his crawler was hidden. An idea, a crazy one, formed in his head. "My crawler. It has a deep rock seismic communicator for sending vibrations through the planet's crust to map underground water. It's a simple tool. It uses basic pulse codes. Very old tech. You want to talk to this thing with a sonic drill?" Una asked, disbelief on her face. "It's a language," June said, already moving. "A simple one. Maybe too simple for security locks. Maybe it's the only language it will still understand." They ran back to the crawler. June drove it as close as he dared. The patrol craft was on the far side of the canyon now, but it would come back. Time was running out. He extended the long, spindly arm of the seismic com unit. Its tip was a resonance hammer, designed to tap on rock. He positioned it carefully against the black circle of the access port. "What do I even say?" he muttered, his hands over the control pad. "Tell it we're here," Una said softly, watching the sky. "Tell it we're human." June thought. He needed a pattern, a universal pattern. He input a sequence. A pulse, a pause. 2 pulses. A pause. 3 pulses. A pause. 5 pulses. The prime number sequence. The building blocks of mathematics. A signal of intelligence, not threat. He activated the hammer. Thump. Thump, thump. Thump, thump, thump. Thump, 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 thump. The sound was dull, swallowed by the rock. Nothing happened. Again. Una urged. June sent the sequence again. Thump, thump, thump. A vibration started beneath their feet. It was not from the hammer. It came from deep, deep below. The ground began to tremble. Small rocks skittered down the canyon walls. From the great gray metal plate in Trench 7, a line of light appeared. It was a deep, burnt orange color, like old rust or dried blood. The light traced a path along the edge of the plate. Then it branched, like a river finding its old bed. Across the canyon, other plates Una had not even found yet began to glow with the same ominous light. A low hum filled the air, deeper and more powerful than the sound of the patrol craft. It was a sound you felt in your bones. Then a voice spoke. It was not in the air. It was inside their heads. It was calm, clear, and without emotion. It spoke in their own language. Cognition pattern recognized. User status, legacy. Awakening protocol, Jormungand initiated. Defining threat parameters. June and Una looked at each other, their faces pale with shock. The voice was in their minds. The ground continued to vibrate. The orange light spread, connecting, forming a vast and intricate pattern across the canyon floor. Above them, the Keelid patrol craft stopped its methodical search. It turned sharply, orienting itself toward the source of the energy spike now screaming across its sensors. It began to descend toward their position, its weapon ports glowing with a menacing green light. The thing under the ground was awake, and it had a name. JORMUNGAD. The red dust of Terra Nova 3 was supposed to be the beginning. Kim June guided his crawler, a hulking machine of pipes and grinding treads, along the deep canyon floor. Its job was simple: chew rock, release tailored microbes, and slowly, over centuries, make the air breathable. June liked this work. It was creation. It was patient. Above him, the sky was a pale pink, streaked with thin clouds. It was quiet, except for the low rumble of his machine. He was checking a sediment sampler when the light changed. The pink sky darkened to a bruised purple. But there were no clouds. The dark patches were solid, geometric. They were ships. They slid into view, silent and terrifying. They were not the rounded, friendly shapes of human cargo vessels. These were sharp, like black glass knives, and they came in numbers that blotted out the sun. June's heart hammered against his ribs. He killed the crawler's engine. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. From the main human outpost, a cluster of white domes on the northern plain, Commander Park Min-soo watched the same ships descend. His hand, resting on the observation window, felt the vibration through the reinforced glass. He was a tall man with a tired face, his hair more gray than black. His uniform was clean, but it was the uniform of an administrator, not a soldier. His security chief, A young woman named Ji-young stood beside him, her face pale. Identification? Min-su asked, his voice flat. Nothing in the database, sir, Ji-young said. Energy signatures are massive. Weapons grade. Shields are active. They are not answering hails. Min-su nodded slowly. He had known this was a possibility. The galaxy was a big place. Humanity, after the Great Accord generations ago, had chosen a different path. They traded, they farmed, they built. They did not fight. Their history lessons spoke of old conflicts in vague terms, calling them the time of lessons. Fighting was a relic, a foolish thing. The outpost had a small security force. Their weapons were light pistols, useful for scaring off native rock-eaters or sealing a ruptured pipe. They were not for this. The lead ship, larger than the others, landed just outside the perimeter fence. The ground shook. A ramp descended, and figures emerged. They were tall, taller than any human, clad in armor that seemed to drink the light. It was a shifting, oily black. They moved with a single fluid purpose. They did not run. They marched. Behind them, more ramps fell, and armored soldiers fanned out in perfect formation. Securing the area, Min-su took a deep breath. Open the main airlock, he said. No one is to raise a weapon. No one. Sir, Ji-young began. That is an order, Min-su said, his eyes never leaving the approaching soldiers. We cannot win a fight. Our only chance is to talk. The outpost's main door slid open with a sigh. Min-su walked out alone, hands clearly visible at his sides. The alien soldiers stopped. One of them, its helmet featureless, stepped forward. A translator box on its chest emitted a voice that was cold and mechanical. This world is now a protectorate of the Keelid Empire. You will surrender all assets, technology, and personnel. Your species is classified as a resource guild. You will serve. Min-su felt a cold knot in his stomach. We are a peaceful scientific colony under the Galactic Accord. We claim no territory. We only wish to work. The soldier did not move. The Accord is irrelevant. The Empire is order. You are now part of that order. Compliance is mandatory. Non-compliance is eradication. The word eradication hung in the thin air. Min-su looked past the soldier at the rows of silent, faceless troops. He looked back at the outpost domes, where the faces of his people, botanists, chemists, engineers, were pressed against the windows. He thought of Kim Jung, out in the canyon, probably watching this. He thought of Lee Yuna, digging in her trench, oblivious. He had 200 lives in his hands, his shoulders, already slumped with paperwork and responsibility, sagged a little more. He saw no heroism in a pointless death. Only waste. We comply, Park Min-su said, the words ash in his mouth. We surrender. Meanwhile, 5 kilometers east in the canyon, Lee Yuna was not thinking about the sky. Her world was the ground. She knelt in an excavation trench, a fine brush in one hand, a suction tool in the other. Before her, emerging from the red dust, was a sheet of gray metal. It was not natural. It was perfectly smooth, and her scanner told her it went down a very, very long way. Another panel, she muttered to herself, tagging it on her wrist-mounted datapad. The official file called it Pre-Accord Geothermal Substrate, Type 7. Boring name for the most fascinating thing on this planet. The outpost scientists believe their ancestors, when they first scouted Terra Nova 3, tried to build a giant heat extractor and gave up. Yuna had always thought that was stupid. Who built a geothermal plant with panels of hyperdense alloy that showed zero heat transfer? She was a xenoarchaeologist, which here meant human archaeologist. She dug up humanity's own forgotten past. And she had a strong feeling the official history was wrong. It was too clean, too gentle. A shadow passed over the trench. She looked up, annoyed, expecting June's crawler. Instead, she saw a small, angular, keeled patrol craft, buzzing like an angry insect. It slowed, hovering directly above her. A spotlight pinned her in its white circle. Una froze, her scientific curiosity replaced by primal fear. A voice, synthesized and harsh, blared from the craft. All human activity is suspended. Return to your central habitation. You have 1 hour. Disobedience will be met with lethal force. The craft then sped off, following the canyon. Una's heart pounded. She crouched lower in the trench, making herself small. An hour. She looked at the metal panel. Her scanner was still active, and it was now showing a new reading. A deep scan she had left running had just finished. It revealed something beneath the first layer. Not rock, but a labyrinth of crystalline structures and energy channels. And at the very edge of the scan's range, a power source. It wasn't dead. It was reading at 0.001% capacity. Dormant. Sleeping. This was no geothermal plate. The scale was all wrong. The complexity was insane. It looked less like a machine and more like a circuit board for a planet. Her fear twisted into something else, a fierce, burning excitement. They were wrong. Everyone was wrong. The invaders in the sky, Commander Minsu in his office, all the history books. They had no idea what was under their feet. She had to tell someone. She thought of June. He was good with machines, with systems. He understood how things talked to each other. And more importantly, he was close. She tapped her comms unit. June? Kim June, are you receiving? It's Una. Don't go back to the outpost. Don't. Meet me at Trench 7. I've found something. Something they buried for a reason. There was a long silence, just static. Then June's voice, tight with fear, came through. Una? The ships. They're everywhere. Minsu surrendered. They're rounding everyone up. I know, Una whispered, her eyes glued to the scanner's impossible data. That's why you need to come here. Now, before our hour is up. I think I just found out why we were really told to forget.